It
Yo, what's
does.
up? This is the beginning of a good
Hey
thing.
guys. So, we are here to discuss the relevance of a slightly irrelevant musical.
We're
Well, not
kicking it
irrelevant.
off
Okay,
with
slightly
that.
old musical. It came out 5 years ago, but people are just starting to talk about it now, especially because of its all its themes that relate to freedom, the constitutional rights, all these maskers alike, especially in the wake of things like the coronavirus, the Black Lives Matters protests, and especially just, I don't know, Disney Plus putting Hamilton up on there. That was probably the biggest thing. It's one of the top albums on Spotify right now, which it hasn't held one of those spots in a little while, right?
Yeah, it was on the
So,
Billboard top hip hop charts for like a long time when it came out.
yeah, no, 100% for about a year and a half or something, right? And then now it's still on there since the beginning of July. It's been a month.
So here's the thing, and I feel like Lin-Manuel Miranda really is a modern Shakespeare. And I
Mm-hmm.
hear a lot of
Yeah.
people saying this, and like I don't think it's an exaggeration, and here's why. And he's using the language of today. He's using rap music. He's using a representation of America today, black and brown people, to represent these universal stories that can go on like forever, but also like he's making a 200-year-old story relevant, which like Shakespeare took these ancient stories and like invented words to tell them.
Yeah,
And that's kind of what
exactly.
Lin's doing. And what else he said was he was like, more people are gonna see Hamilton now that it comes out on Disney Plus than have ever seen it in like the 5 years that it was running.
Exactly. Yes, and that's true because the tickets were so hard to get because it was so renowned, right? But it was so renowned to the point that you could only know of its like merit just from the reviews of all these, high and mighty socialites. And a lot of people in Toronto who got tickets before me, which I'm pretty miffed about, but we're not going to get into that here. I've been trying to get a ticket to that show for a little while. Did not end up working. But
The craziest picture in my head is that when it opened off Broadway in the public theater, Lin was like outside the theater, like busking and rapping and freestyling and be like, get tickets to my
yeah,
show, get tickets to my show. And then it became the hottest ticket in Broadway that like nobody,
that's true.
it's just
Did you ever
absurd.
sorry to cut you off there, but did you ever see the first? I believe it was one of the first times he showed the song Alexander Hamilton, the first song on the musical. To I believe it was at a press conference or something like that in
He went
the
to the White
White
House
House.
and he
Right?
performed it.
Yeah, yeah, and it was sad that well, no, Barack Obama was still in office when it came out, but it's definitely sad that like Donald Trump hasn't even acknowledged its relevance right now, especially because
Yes.
well, and here's the thing, because full disclosure, I am not like I don't agree with everything Trump says, but I think some of his policies have been effective. But I also think he is not one who should have access to social media or whatever his personality he takes on social media is like I get he's trying to sound abrasive, like that's his intent, right? He wants to be absurd. I just don't think that's the best strategy to play as POTUS.
Well, he like at this point, it's clear what people he wants to drum up. Like who he really wants to like activate and get going, and this was one of one of the things that like made it most clear for like, okay, like he knows what he's doing. I don't know if this is still happening, but he was going to go to, I think, Jacksonville, Florida, and I can like
Yeah.
post sources for all of this. He was going to go to Jacksonville, Florida, and accept the GOP nomination for this year on the day and in the same place that there was a KKK attack like years and years
Yeah.
ago. And so it's
Mm.
like you if you were like trying really hard, you could be like, oh, he's an idiot and he didn't realize. But if you think about who his supporters are, of course he realized what he was doing.
Yeah, that's true. And another thing is, he's still trying to get that support from those people, or like, I'm not saying every Republican shares those beliefs, but let's just say that specific people who share those kind of anti-Semitic beliefs and racist beliefs. When he cited the reasoning for the cancellation of the Jacksonville rally as coronavirus, and that's fair. But at the same
Right.
time, like last time he wasn't he refused to let Texas. What was it? Was it Texas? It was Texas, I think. Some country, he did not want them to cancel it at all, and he called them a
Was
pussy
it?
or something like
Oh,
that.
and it wasn't the one where all the TikTokers and the K-popers bought out tickets and then didn't come, so it was like
that one was
empty.
funny though.
That one was really funny.
And I thought that was like smart, and like for a guy who claims to be very clever, how could he not see that very simple technology flaw? Like, if you're not taking accountability for who's actually showing up and freeing those seats as such, no wonder those seats are empty. I bet all these people wanted to get there and they're like, oh, it's full, and then were enraged when they saw online that all these people like took the seats. But I think it was an effective political strategy. Like, I think that worked. I think that was the goal, right? And like, I think that was kind of necessary, because he's been trying to push the limits of the, I don't know, I guess, of his own country's of how gullible his country can be to his own proclamations. Because I know it's a complicated sentence there, but it just goes to show, the whole hydrochloroquine thing, to the protest, like not wearing masks, to the whole having these rallies and stuff, to even that really heinous moment when he, like, I personally disagree with the photo shoot with the Bible. I don't know if you saw that.
Right, like in like the middle of the protest.
A month ago. But like, and again, as somebody who's like not like, I'm pretty politically centered, but at the same time, like, that's not something you'd want to see a leader do. That's just very.
And he held the Bible so weirdly. The way he there was like a pastor or something who was he held it up like that. There was somebody who talked about like that's not how you hold a Bible, first as a regular person who's ever seen a book, but also like if you want to be respectful to the Bible and you're a Christian, that's like not how you hold it. I wouldn't know, but
no, exactly. I wouldn't know either.
We're two friends who met at university in Canada. We're fascinated with politics and global affairs and public policy and law and all that stuff. And personally, I mean, my name is Kobi Russell. I'm a musician. I'm a YouTuber from Boston. And I'm about to start studying international and global studies at Brandeis University. So I'm really excited about that. I'll pass it to you, Patrick.
Hey, so my name is Patrick Allen, and I am currently I guess I could say, freelance writer and YouTuber who is now, trying my hand at finishing my Bachelor of Arts in Law and Legal Studies at Carleton University, trying to get into good law school somewhere here in Canada. And yeah, Kobe basically took the words out of my mouth there. We're very fascinated by everything to do with world issues, current events, politics, law, history, religion, you name it. Even the occasional meme.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about before I jumped into my first story for today?
No, you're good. Yeah, you're good. Okay, so jump in.
This is a lovely little story about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Ooh, AOC, awesome.
Yes, AOC. I will henceforth refer to as AOC because much easier. Not that like her name shouldn't be pronounced, and it's just it's important to learn how to pronounce hard names, and
it's 10 syllables. That's the
it's
problem.
long. Yeah.
I just had to count it. It's 10 syllables. Like it's just a big mouthful, and it takes probably 3 seconds of our time.
Yeah. Um, so this is a little summary that I found online for this story, and there's some interesting things to unpack here. On July 20th, Representative Ted Yoho of Florida reportedly accosted Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the steps of the Capitol, calling the Congresswoman disgusting and out of your freaking mind. The Congresswoman then proceeded to call Ocasio-Cortez a, quote, effing bitch. I don't know if I can say the F word on YouTube, maybe.
I don't think so. We don't want to get, there's so much you can't say on YouTube.
You can say bitch, apparently. I've seen it. But
see, that's why we have to go through and filter a lot of this, because
yeah,
I might
yikes.
just get us destroyed on YouTube.
Then proceeded to call her an effing bitch in front of reporters. The following day, Representative Yoho delivered a non-apology that attempted to excuse his behavior because he has a wife and 2 daughters.
So I heard, I don't know if I can find the source, and I'm not saying I agree with one more than the other, but I also heard that he told her to F off, and that like that's his
So.
side of the story. Yeah, something like that. And like it's interesting here because it's, so we can look at it from both sides here, because at the end of the day, someone's a victim, right? And I'm like, it's probably AOC because of how, history and statistics show, but we can never follow through on accusations without full fact. But from the Democratic side, like they've been trying to undermine AOC for ever since she's gotten into office, right? That's a fact, because of her being I believe she's the youngest congresswoman.
I think
Not to
so.
mention she's congresswoman of color too, right?
Yeah.
And that's very relevant today, especially with representation. And I, like, with the way the election's going, I think that Yoho was just trying to, ruin her reputation a little with this, because even if he said that, I think, so assuming I believe what she's saying, I think he wanted her to make some sort of statement, because I think there's a group of people who take her a little less seriously every time she makes a statement, right? Same people who go and, like, every time they see any issue that happens to deal with sexual assault or women's rights, the first ones to post, oh, this is just feminism. It's like, stop being such a feminazi, or stop being such an SJW, right? It's those more right-leaning people who kind of, like to think, oh wow, they're just a bunch of fruitcakes who don't know what they're talking about. I think that's what they're like seeing it as. So I think personally that if Yoho did it, he was doing it to get that reaction, to try and get his supporters to take her less seriously, or to gain more supporters almost. Because all the
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna put in a yes to all of that for the people. If you're just listening to this and you're not watching it, you can't see me nodding my head. I agree with what you're saying. So that links directly is they write it as Representative Ted Yoho of Florida reportedly accosted her. And so you can think of that as 2 ways. As one, it's good reporting because it's like, well, we don't have all the facts yet, so we don't know if this had happened. But you can also look at from the other way is it time that we just believe women? And take them at their word when they say this happened to me, and instead of saying, well, this allegedly happened to her, this reportedly happened to her, if she says it happened, especially about something so humiliating like effing bitch, like
then they should
why would she lie?
Yeah, exactly.
We should always be on the search for all the facts, and like why would she lie?
Yeah, and I think another thing is too is they're not really following through well, they probably are. I can't say that at all, but we don't, in these cases, we don't often hear the outcomes, right? It gets, to quote Hamilton, we're not in the room where it happens, so we don't really see we don't see all of the different things, compromises that are made, and if he did do that, I don't think he's gonna get the full repercussions. I mean, like, if the Brent Kavanaugh thing was true, right, then how is he sitting on
I've heard people say, like, if he said these comments to a woman in any other job in America, he would get fired. But because he's in the
He's not
Congress,
fired.
somehow he
Yeah.
gets kept, and
Sexual
it's such
harassment,
an
maybe.
important, like what the hell? It's such an important job.
Yeah.
Um,
You
here's
think
the
it'd be the
other,
opposite of immunity.
yeah. Here's the other little bit of analysis of the language. Is they said Representative Yoho delivered a non-apology, and like however many years ago, non-apology wouldn't be a word.
Yeah, it would just be delivered a
We would have
statement
just
or like
said
a
he delivered a
belligerent
statement or
statement,
delivered
right?
apology, and we'd be like, oh look, he's a lovely family man. He has a wife and daughters. So he apologized. Let's move on. But now we're like, you know what? That's not good enough. And for me, that shows positive change in the country.
Yeah.
And so here's the other thing. And my mom put me onto this. She sent me the speech, and then my dad shared it. And she said to my dad at dinner, I'm so thankful that you shared this video of her talking about it, because I don't see like any men sharing it. And I thought that was interesting.
I think one of those things is it could be split right down the middle with beliefs and fear, right? Because it's one of those things. Same with the Black Lives Matters movement. It was like all these people, and I'm not saying it was okay. You shouldn't have been silenced, but these people weren't speaking out because of fear, right?
Yeah.
Because they're like, can I speak out? And I think with this men thing, it's like people either think like I feel like a lot of it is men misinterpreting the movement. Like they think it's feminazis, think it's SJW. They think every time a woman has an issue, they have to be the farthest of the left, right? And that's not true.
I agree with that. I think for the Black Lives Matter thing, it was so interesting because I was like, if I'm white, which I very clearly am, and I share stuff about Black Lives Matter, will it look like, oh, it's just a white person who wants to get likes on Facebook,
Yeah, or is it
for
someone just trying to
being
fit in
part
with
of a
the movement?
trend, but you
Yeah.
don't really care about Black lives. And that's why I was like, it's so important for me to like
Mm-hmm.
sign petitions, do
Yeah,
donations,
no,
like
exactly.
do all these
Change.org
like,
is like one of the
yeah,
first things I go to in the morning.
do all these
Like,
bits of action. We'll put some petitions in the description of this video and just
yeah.
make it happen, because words are words and awareness is so important. And so I was like like can I share anything? Does this make sense? And then I saw someone on my Facebook feed who said, I'm watching all the white people that I'm friends with, and if they don't post, I'm gonna unfriend them.
See, that's the one thing.
Which is
That I don't
intense, and I understand why
and
people
that
wouldn't
would
be a
pressure
fan of that.
people to almost fall victim to what they're being warned about, right? Because
And
they
they
pressure
have to be
people to
public
make those
about their
posts and then get
views,
me. Yeah,
which
yeah.
some people don't want to be.
No, and it's like, yeah, because at the end of the day, you don't like you just want to meet people for people. You don't want to have your group of people sectioned off just because you're left or right, right?
I
Like,
agree
that's
with
why
that.
people who proclaim they're centrists or that they're in the middle, they don't get hate, but they definitely get seen almost with less credibility just because they haven't made a decision. But I think it's more of I think politics is more than that. I'm gonna leave it at that.
But at the same time, I saw the post, and I was like, okay, let me speak out and let me find my angle. So I guess like that, like if there is that fear of like this isn't my place and I should just listen to POC voices and let them speak instead of just like putting my white voice all over it, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
that gave me the confidence to be like, okay, I have to say something, because I really don't want people to think that I'm being silent because I don't care, which is what happened
No.
in Nazi Germany when so many people were
Yeah.
silent.
Yeah, and with your family's history, you can especially speak to that, right?
I
And
am Jewish, by the way.
yeah, it's actually 2020. You should not have to assume that. Sorry. Um, anyway, what was I getting to there? I think another thing is too. It's like, what more is there to be said, right? because it's like I'm not, and then that's not like that sounds really. Someone could take this out of context and screw over my whole career.
I know you
But
mean.
like so many people have worded it so beautifully. Like Billie Eilish, I believe Taylor Swift had a pretty nice comment. You know, obviously Obama. Like there's so many people who just posted these gorgeously written pieces that I could not do, and with my 200 person following, I don't think would hit home. I think they would hit like trying hard. So I did make a post. I did do the Blackout Tuesday thing.
Blackout
Although
Tuesday, yeah.
I'm gonna admit to it. I made the same mistake a lot of people did. At first, I put the hashtag Black Lives Matters until I saw a comment and said that you shouldn't put the hashtag
Same,
Black
yeah.
Lives Matters because you can clog up some relevant posts. And you know, obviously, I'm not trying to clog up relevant posts. So I went back and I changed the hashtag. And do I regret it being less seen? No, because more important things are being seen. And I think that's at the end of the
Absolutely.
day. It's as long as you don't have to. I think it's more of you have to be in support of those views or showing your support. Like you could be commenting on other people's posts. I don't know if people are going to view the same way, but I think that should be just as important as making your own, because like at the end of the day, in terms of social media, the algorithm makes only the biggest people show up, right? The people who post the most often, you know, some like people who don't, introverts like myself who barely post, or like people who are in these positions and they feel anxious about posting because of their skin color. Just show your support, sign some change petitions. They go a long way. I know it sounds like it's not much, but seriously, if you're listening to this, do it. Like what harm is there to it? Really?
Oh yes. Oh no, I second that. I saw someone who was doing a TikTok, and they were I was like, how long is the podcast gonna go before I mention TikTok? So terrible, but it's not terrible. No, it's a good platform. But I was just like,
It
I
is.
don't want to
It is.
talk about it. I
Like,
don't
I
want to
don't
talk
use
about it.
it, but I like it.
No, I was like so unconvinced, and I got on it, and like there's like a lot of talk about like mental health awareness and stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool, you know. But there was someone who was like talking about giving guacamole to a stranger, and then
Really.
a possible like a homeless man, and she was like, this is the best guacamole I've ever had in my life, and she gave it to him, like most of it. And so like someone who could possibly be described as a Karen, like shouts from like across the street. She's like, good deeds don't count if you talk about them on social media. And then
And yeah,
the lady
that's
finishes the video, and she yells back at the lady, and she's like, yo, don't get this twisted. I'm not a good person. I wanted to make this video to talk about how sad I am that I don't have my guacamole. So like that was like the twist at the end. But the thing is that like good deeds do count if nobody hears about them.
that's true. Yeah,
Like
and that's something that people don't like. People are too. I don't know. I think their motives are too mixed between wanting to be a good person and wanting other people to know they're a good person, right? Because at the end of the day,
yes.
they're like, wait a minute, because I don't think people understand the good heart feeling or the good feeling you get when you just do a good deed. You know, like I saw another video like that, but it was one of those ones people were calling out. Like this one guy, he saw a man with no shoes, right? And he was like, "Hey, you have excuse me, sir, what size are you?" And he's like, 10 and a half. And he's like, "Take my shoes." And he's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, I have another pair in my bag. Take my shoes." He gives him, I think it was a pair of like Air Maxes or something like that.
Oh, nice.
And then, but yeah, but like, you know, great deed, right? And like I thought that was a really wholesome video until I started reading the comments, and like it started muddling my opinion about it because he recorded it, right? But does that take away from the good deed? Like, does recording it make like
Right. So
and
I don't think so.
see, and I don't either, but it's one of those things it's kind of you're hesitant to say because it's like you don't want to make it seem like you support people who just do good deeds for clout, but at the same time, like maybe they just want to inspire others, right? Like someone has to.
Oh, that's so nice. Zoom gave me a gift and removed the time limit on this meeting. Because with free Zoom, you
Weird.
have a time limit. That is such a win. Okay,
Wait,
thank you, Zoom.
who really?
Kind of
Zoom's
creepy,
awesome.
but yeah, that's sick. Okay, we do live in this world where if it's not on social media, it didn't happen. And so living in
Yeah.
the moment and being like, I know that I'm a good person because I did this, and the person who I did it for and with knows that I'm a good person because I did it. Nobody else has to know. That's a very powerful place to be in. But also, if you're like, I signed this petition, and I think everybody else should sign it too.
I think that's fair, right? Don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, what are you supposed to not show that you? But not, it's not still showing you're a good person. At that point, that's broadcasting your views, and that goes back to
That's
another thing
signal
we said about
boosting,
people
yeah.
who don't want to, who don't want to be sharing their views, not their, yeah, their political views, right? And that goes to, do people think giving charity is a good thing, right? Some people don't like to give out handouts. Some people think that people should work for it. And I think these little instances, people might fake it to prevent exposure, right? So it's like, I think the real issue with this whole social media thing is every act. So if some actions on social media can be good still, even though they're put on the social media for the views, where does the line stop, right? Like, and I'm not saying it does, but I'm also saying, like, I think that's what's got people, right? They're feeling like at this point there has to be either some reason for doing it, and either that's the new good, or that this is all just some sort of sham, and then those people who do post should stop, right? And should just start living in the moment. I think it's been split into those different schools of thought about the social media whole,
So
what's the word,
here's
thing.
a really, really tough one. Is there was some anti-Semitism going on in the world, and the the main one that people point to is like Nick Cannon, and he was with that dude talking about like, oh, black
Yeah, I
people are
heard
the
that.
real Israelites, and
Mm-hmm.
I've met with black Israelites and talked with them, and I understand that story. And the idea is, God said that God's children would suffer, like severely, and obviously Jews have suffered, but because black people are suffering so much all around the world,
It had to have some, like, so the idea is that it had some sort of like equivalent exchange effect or a butterfly effect, right? Like, it's like, if this is happening, it has to come out of somewhere. So
I guess, yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
the perspective. This is the first of me hearing about that, because I saw the headlines. I didn't read too much into it because at the end of the day, I don't know. I just didn't end up looking into it too much. But I did know he got fired from a couple of things. I did know the one guy. It was the comments he made in '87 to a Washington Post
Oh,
or something
wow.
like that, or '93, something like that. He wrote an article. One of the guys Nick Cannon was interviewing on his podcast. I think it was the Breakfast Club, was it not?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, if that's
Was he
not
with
his podcast.
Charlemagne the God? I'm
Yeah,
actually a Charlemagne fan, believe it or not. I mean, I
really.
like, yeah, I've listened to some of his music and stuff, and like, I've always like, he definitely loves to like go on the air and be
Who
kind of
he is, yeah.
controversial, and also like be who he is. Um, but I never really had negative feelings towards him.
What about now with, like, I know it might be a personal question, but like with all this light, and you said you kind of get where he's coming from
Right.
with
I just feel like it can definitely be taken out of context for a lot of people because it
yeah.
sounds like it's completely erasing Jewish heritage.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. Let me fix my camera here. There we go. That's a little bit better.
I don't like I don't mind. I don't mind if black people say we're children of God. I don't mind that at all. But it's like with that type of platform, with so many people who are going to see it, like I don't know if many people are going to see this. But like so
Yeah.
many people are going to see and think about that, you kind of have to think about like how is this going to be taken.
That's
That's my
true.
kind of thing.
Right. It's the reception of the thoughts, right? And that's why that also kind of ties to the whole theme of like people being afraid to share their views, right? Whereas in this context, he's not, and that's awesome, right? I wish, like, I'm not too afraid to share my views, but I definitely get anxious about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah,
like
same.
that
Yeah.
thought of what other people care about it, and that shouldn't matter, but it's always going to matter a little bit, and more for some people.
Well,
But
I've been posting on Reddit, and there's always someone who's smarter than you on Reddit who will make you
yeah,
feel like an idiot about your views. And so I'm like, I never, and even like with something like this, like I never want to say something, or I've shared like a lot, like, and a lot of people got crap for this, but it was about Felicity Huffman and the college thing, and then they shared a photo of a black woman next to her who got a much, much harsher sentence for a similar crime. And they were like, look, there's a problem of racism in our country. And there
yeah,
obviously is a problem of racism in the country. But
yeah.
I shared it, and why people freaked out at me and why people freaked out at other people that they shared it is because they're like, you don't have the full facts here, and you don't know that there were all these different other cases and offenses that were involved with the black woman. So it's not two equivalent things.
Yes, that's true, and that's one of those things where it's like you want to be using your voice and your platform to be speaking out, but you also don't want to be ignorant, and that it's the
Exactly.
constant clash, right? But it's for me, it's I'm that type of person that like if I'm ignorant about something, I will admit to it, I'll apologize about it, and I'll learn from it, right? Because that's what ignorance is for. I do think sometimes people go a little bit too far with the whole like educating, right? And like don't get
I
me
agree.
wrong, I think educating people is fair, but and it's not interrogating, and it's not what's the word? Um it's such a, okay, yeah, it's not badgering them. That's not quite the word I was looking for, but still. Yeah, this it's not about drilling into the person. It's about just trying to get the idea through their head. And they might sound like the same thing, but they're not. Right? It's a difference between making that person feel
100%.
like they're not. It's
100%.
different between making that person feel like they're not worthy of learning or living with those people than giving them the opportunity to grow from that. Because we all have our backgrounds. I'm not using that as an excuse to excuse racism or anything, but at the end of the day, we all know what we know, and it for people will draw their own conclusions. But I think as somebody, for example, yeah, I don't know how long into this podcast, but I can't believe I'm bringing it up first episode. I have Asperger's, which is level 1 autism, and a lot of people just complete misconception of what that is. All right, like they won't really. It's a sensory disorder, right? And people don't, and a social disorder, and people don't understand that like it doesn't make me retarded, right? It doesn't, or yeah, it doesn't make me less intelligent, and it certainly doesn't make me less of a person. And that's, I'm not saying I got all those words directly, but it's definitely those vibes, right? Like I'll get people who come up to me and they talk to me like I have some very severe disability, and while I appreciate I guess the assumed gesture, I don't like appreciate the context of it. Like it goes a long way to ask a question, but it also goes a long way to answer it in kind and not answer it with ridicule.
It's fascinating. This is actually one of those topics where I'm like, do I really have a way into this conversation? Do I have a place? Like, is it something that I can speak on?
No,
Because
I mean,
it's not
it
my
requires
experience.
people who don't have a. It requires regular people too, because at the end of the day, it's about being open. It's about being open to learning, right? Everybody should be, but the people like, and I know people don't want to be teaching people. I know that it might be a burden, but at the same time, like if you're not willing to teach the person, smile and do as best as you can to walk away, because it's like you are not liable for their ignorance, but you are liable for your own reaction. Right? You have the right to choose, but you're free to choose, but you aren't free from the consequences of your choice. That's something I always hold to my heart, and I can apply that to a lot of things. But yeah,
But
that's about all I have to
I'm
say about it.
yeah, yeah. I'm just really curious of what you have to think about. Like, I've seen people say, like, can we please stop using the term high functioning?
Yeah, and I'm like, excuse me, I literally got diagnosed with high functioning Asperger's syndrome, and my doctor. I'm not trying to flex here, because you can kind of tell in the like, especially when I say it now in the way I speak, especially people listening here. But I am. was diagnosed with highly functioning Asperger's syndrome, and I was seen as one of the highest functioning. Yeah, like I think that there's a big distinction because I know people who they could be people who you can barely tell are of Asperger's, but their EQ that should be lower is proportionate to their intelligence. They might not be people who are more intelligent because another misconception is we're all super geniuses. Some of us are smarter, right? Like I skipped a grade. I'm not saying I'm smarter than the average person. I'm saying my brain maybe developed a little quicker, but certainly not, greater. Like you said, there's always somebody smarter. Never assume you're the smartest in the room. But
The Hamilton
there are people
references.
who just function regularly and or function below average, and I think that there needs to be that distinction. Same with why I don't agree with the whole level 1 autism thing instead of Asperger's, because I'll refer to it as Asperger's, but like I believe, and I can't believe I'm saying I believe, I should know this, but the distinction between level 1 Asperger's and level 2, which is known as just regular autism spectrum disorder, which are now amalgamated into one, the difference is the ability to form words and cognitive functions, right? Like, I have all my motor
Right.
skills may not be accurate, and so yeah, I do think there has to be that highly functioning distinction for both, and I do think it's interesting where
Oh,
people
okay,
say
that makes sense. Okay.
it's the ignorance though, right? It's not even in a bad thing, because when I say ignorance, I mean lack of knowledge, right? I don't like a lot. When I grew up, my mom used it so much it almost sounded like ignorant meant rude, and I've met very rude people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what it comes down to for that. But I definitely don't like. I think people like us need to have this type of conversation because it's the awareness, right? It's the awareness that people's stories might be different, and that's okay, right? It's like it should be open topics and not something we curve around. Because I've had people not want to talk about it or apologize when asking me about it. And I'm like, look,
Oh
my
wow.
personal situation. I've always been like this, and it's just something I've had to deal with. I don't face as much discrimination as people who might be people of different color, different beliefs, right? Even the indigenous community here in Canada face tenfold the discrimination I do, especially being highly functioning. But another thing about autism, I'll get off the autism tangent here in a second, is when you know someone with autism, you know one person with autism. So you're like some of the symptoms can be very invisible. Some of them can be very, easy to tell. And you simply just can't always make the assumptions that you know. And I think that um, last sentiment can kind of be applied to a lot of things that are relevant to this topic.
So this was, I mean, you don't have to like get off the tangent. It's such an important thing to talk about. But this was like so recent that it's weird that I'm like already like bringing it into a podcast or something. It's kind of personal, I guess, but I was sitting down and I was having a conversation with my sister, and she's like, there are some things that, because I like had like a pretty serious episode of like mental illness recently,
Yeah.
um and there are things she was like, can I talk about, like, just for myself to kind of understand them better, can I talk about certain moments that you had and that we had together while you were sort of in that, I don't know what to call it exactly, in that experience, like in that
Yeah. In that
place.
episode. Yeah.
And I was like, I've done a ton of work and a ton of processing of my own to think about this. So when people come and talk to me about it, they don't they don't have to apologize. They don't have to be like, is this going to make you uncomfortable? Like, unless they're like, your experience is not valid, screw you.
Yeah, that's the thing that gets me. It's like, look, unique experiences are real, right? And that ties back to the Alexander Cortez thing too. We can't make jumps to
Yes,
conclusion.
yes.
Yeah.
And I'm about to wrap up that story, but so do you feel that same way with sort of autism and Asperger's, where like people can
Yes.
ask you about it because it's something
Yeah,
that
no,
you've come to terms
100%.
with?
Because I thought of the answers. You summed it up perfectly. Over time, because when I was younger, I didn't fully understand it. Heck, now we don't even fully understand autism. It's one of those things that, like, it's such a widespread topic and such a, what's the word, deep topic that you can't really ever get to the root of it.
Yeah.
Okay, back to you.
Here's the thing. Here's the last two bits, and then we can like talk about anything. We can go back to Hamilton, which I love to do.
Bro, Hamilton, awesome. It was good. It was so good. I listened to it. It's wow. Okay, go ahead.
Yoho called her an effing bitch because she was going to do something or was in the process of doing something that he didn't want her to do. And I learned what that thing is. And this is from the LA Times, and I'll read it. In this case, the something that Yoho did not want AOC to do was to suggest, as she had a few days earlier, that New York City's recent crime spike could be due in part to unemployment and economic uncertainty.
Which is a pretty valid
It
point,
seems
right?
so obvious.
Especially in a country where, no offense, but not everyone's taking social distancing as seriously, right? Like here in Canada, not saying people are either, especially in the Toronto Peel region, but sometimes, well, not sometimes, it's evident that our sexual assault and domestic violence rates have been going up, but other stuff has been going down because obviously people can't really commit theft, right? Especially in the earlier stages of the pandemic. But I think that will, like, this is a whole different topic, but I think things like robbery are going to have to be tackled differently very shortly because, you know, pair of sunglasses and your mask, you're not going to be able to be seen. Like, let's be real here, right? Like, stores are going to have to make some effort. Yeah.
Yes, you're supposed to wear a mask in a store, but how do they know? Like, there was.
Yeah, you could have an eye covering, a helmet, right?
There was
It could be so
someone.
simple.
I was in the airport, and someone had to take down their mask and show their face just to verify themselves on their ID. You know, because they look at your ID and they look at you with a mask and they're like, "Is this the same person?" So identity theft or whatever could be a bigger thing. But
yeah, that's true.
My personal bias, because he's trying to prevent her from saying what the truth probably is about crime. I'm like, what does he just want to convince everyone that it's because of black people?
Yeah,
and obviously I have no evidence for that being the case, but I'm curious, and I'd love to do more research as to why he wants to cover up, or does he just want to say like Trump's economy is fantastic? Because with COVID, there's clearly, and Trump says that, you know, and there are some.
It's incredible.
I think there was some point where like the economy went up under Trump. Like that's not like a made up thing. Like that's like a real thing. But with COVID, like now I'm hearing from, I heard it because my dad was in the music business, and I heard from one of his friends and who's also in the music business, and he was like, if I'm not performing in front of audiences, my life has no purpose.
Yeah, and my dad's like, almost the same way. Yeah, because he likes to do a lot of performing stuff too.
The longer this goes on, and the more like it affects so many people in so many different ways, and like it will affect one person in many different ways.
And it's one of those things it can't be attacked with a 12-step plan, right? It's one of those things. It's, what's the word, subjective to the person and to the almost the individual communities, right? This response, the entire pandemic itself, kind of has to be shaped to respond to the individual needs of the people in their communities, right? And I'm not educated enough to know if that's being happened in the States right now. But I didn't know there was a big small business like loan given out early on, like a stimulus check. Not a loan, but I also have heard that Trump had like complete control over where he could spend the money. So obviously the fear over that would be, is he funneling it into his own enterprise?
Native American communities got like no money.
Yeah, see, that's the one that slaps in the
like
face
Puerto
too,
Rico.
right? my sister was very cheesed about that because she's not Native American, but she's indigenous of Canada, right? She's Blackfoot, and yeah, she was pretty, yeah. It was definitely one of those slaps in the face where it's like, wait a minute, so are they just supposed to survive, like, you know, these communities that have less technology and less money than we do? Are we just supposed to not give them money? Like, are we just supposed to help them? Oh, sorry, fend for yourself. Yeah, there's a pandemic, but you can work our jobs, so we don't want our white people working.
Right. If it's another way for the rich to get richer,
yeah,
then
it
that's
seems to be
like,
working.
come on.
Yeah, because don't get me wrong, I'm all for making money, right? But I do think that's like, and here's where it tackles my political beliefs, because it's like, I'm kind of conservative economically, but at the same time, if they're already giving out that money, some of these businesses didn't need that money, right? Like, some of these businesses could have been fine shaving off like even a couple dozen $1,000s, right? Like, if we just like kind of move some numbers around, these communities wouldn't be suffering the way they are.
Here's the Hamilton reference.
Okay.
Hamilton is like, you guys don't have any debt in the South because slaves are doing your labor, and that's why he was like,
Yep.
let's unionize, let's have
Yeah,
the
he
federal
wanted to
government take
centralize
on
the
state debts.
national. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I mean, I'm not at this point now, but like, if I'm like pay like, and it annoys me, like, people who are like capitalist all the way to the nth degree. And there's a lot of good things about capitalism. There are some good things. There are some good things.
Yeah, but it's in moderation, right? Same with like, people could argue the same thing with socialism, right? But the thing
Exactly.
about complete socialism is that it takes away motivation. The thing
Yeah.
about complete capitalism is that it allows businesses to have great control over, you know, things that happen.
But if I'm like paying taxes and some of it goes to help people who are less fortunate than me, like, even though that's my
Mhm.
money, I'm not mad.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
Same.
the
I
thing.
agree.
I'm not mad.
Mhm.
So should I once and for all wrap up the AOC story?
Was that still the AOC story?
No, we went on a tangent from it. It's not related. It's not related.
I'm
I
not
just
sure
had
how
like
we jumped from. I'm not
one more
sure how we
fact to
jumped from
share.
AOC to Corona to autism
To
back to AOC
COVID, to capitalism.
to capitalism.
I don't have to. We
It
can
was
keep
good
our
though.
current conversation going, but
Yeah.
her speech was amazing, and she said, let's break down the idea that just because a man is a family man, just because he's a father, like, yeah, think about like Brett Kavanaugh's and stuff like that, and just because he's a father, it doesn't mean that he can't be sexist and he can't harass women.
Yeah. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, just because I'm like, I'm not saying I am, but I could be very prejudiced and very discriminatory of people with autism and still have autism. You could be anti-Semitic and still be Jewish.
It's true.
And
It's true.
and like, it's
People
like,
might get mad about that, but it's true.
people are gonna get very mad about that. But like, I could be white and hate white people, right? And I'm not gonna say there's better examples of that, but I don't want to get in any trouble. So I'm just gonna use that one.
She said, if you're gonna treat a colleague, if you're gonna treat a fellow congresswoman like this, think about how it reflects on the women in your own life, your wife and
Yeah.
your daughter, and how do you treat them?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
and then yeah, I
yeah,
wasn't
I
even
agree
gonna.
100%.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. So, do we have any more stories?
I'm not gonna do my last story because we've gone on for so long.
Ooh.
Here's the thing. Fox News, I decided to find the sort of conservative twist on the story, Ted Yoho says AOC's being disingenuous and making hay out of this. That's what he said. And Fox dubbed him the loser of the week, and he didn't like that. Yeah, Fox did.
Fox him.
And I think that's so funny when Fox calls you loser of the week, but also loser of the week, like,
yeah, like, who has that? Like, what?
Loser of the week kind of makes it such like a light, funny thing, and he's not like a loser. Like, he's like a misogynist and like a bad person. It's like more than a loser, and it's like when you think, and it also kind of says like he's the one who's like feeling the pain in this situation, because like, oh, like you know, like, oh, he's lost something, or he, like, you could take it two ways. It's like, oh, he's just like a loser, he's like the one who messed up most in the week, but maybe also like he's the one who's like had the hardest time this week, you know, and kind of like putting it like, and think of, and what I wrote in my notes was, when something happens like this, AOC loses, women lose, and America loses. When stuff like this that just puts progress in reverse happens.
Yeah.
My second story was just all about the death of John Lewis.
Oh, well, we can definitely get into that another time, because that's definitely something.
Next episode.
Yeah. Okay, so should we wrap up this one then?
I think so.
Then that is all for today, guys. Next time, hope you join us for our okay. All right, guys. Oh, fuck. All right, and that's everything. So that didn't sound bad. I thought it sounded bad. Okay, you can try.
Please watch Hamilton
And subscribe.
and
Please
subscribe.
Smash that
like and subscribe button
down below.
Thanks so much, guys.
And,
all right,
don't forget to leave those notifications on to be in tune for our next upload.
It's gonna be lit.
Oh, it didn't go all the way around to hit my table.
That'll be the last line of the. Okay. Stopping this recording.
Okay.